Okay, we're going to read Exodus chapter 19, beginning in verse 1. In the 3rd month, after the sons of Israel had gone out of the land of Egypt, on that very day they came into the wilderness of Sinai. When they set out from Rephidim, they came to the wilderness of Sinai and camped in the wilderness, and there Israel camped in front of the mountain. And Moses went up to God, and the Lord called to him from the mountain, saying, Thus you shall say to the house of Jacob, and tell the sons of Israel, You yourselves have seen what I did to the Egyptians, and how I bore you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself. Now then, if you will indeed obey my voice and keep my covenant, then you shall be my own possession among all the peoples, for all the earth is mine, and you shall be to me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words that you shall speak to the sons of Israel. So Moses came and called the elders of the people and set before them all these words which the Lord had commanded him. And all the people answered together and said, All that the Lord has spoken we will do. And Moses brought back the words of the people to the Lord. And the Lord said to Moses, Behold, I shall come to you in a thick cloud, in order that the people may hear when I speak with you, and may always believe in you forever. I may also believe in you forever. Then Moses told the words of the people to the Lord. The Lord also said to Moses, Go to the people and consecrate them today and tomorrow, and let them wash their garments, and let them be ready for the 3rd day. For on the 3rd day the Lord will come down on Mount Sinai in the sight of all the people, and you shall set bounds for the people all around, saying, Beware that you do not go up the mountain or touch the border of it. Whoever touches the mountain shall surely be put to death. No hand shall touch him, but he shall surely be stoned or shot through. Whether beast or man, he shall not live. When the ram's horn sounds a long blast, they shall come up to the mountain. So Moses went down from the mountain to the people and consecrated the people, and they washed their garments. And he said to the people, Be ready for the 3rd day. Do not go near a woman. So it came about on the 3rd day, when it was morning, that there were thunder and lightning flashes, and a thick cloud upon the mountain, and a very loud trumpet sound, so that all the people who were in the camp trembled. And Moses brought the people out of the camp to meet God, and they stood at the foot of the mountain. Now Mount Sinai was all in smoke, because the Lord descended upon it in fire, and its smoke ascended like the smoke of a furnace, and the whole mountain quaked violently. When the sound of the trumpet grew louder and louder, Moses spoke, and God answered him with thunder. And the Lord came down on Mount Sinai to the top of the mountain, and the Lord called Moses to the top of the mountain, and Moses went up. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, Go down, warn the people, lest they break through to the Lord to gaze, and many of them perish. And also let the priests who come near to the Lord consecrate themselves, lest the Lord break out against them. And Moses said to the Lord, The people cannot come up Mount Sinai, for thou didst warn us, saying, Set bounds about the mountain and consecrate it. Then the Lord said to him, Go down and come up again, you and Aaron with you. But do not let the priests and the people break through to come up to the Lord, lest he break forth upon them. So Moses went down to the people and told them. So this is like the holiness of God chapter. Okay, so let's go back to Exodus 19, starting at verse 1. And that's why I had these, I'll just hold this up and show you. It says, in the 3rd month after the sons of Israel had gone out of the land. So the first month was Nisan, and they left, they slaughtered the Passover lamb on the 14th, and then they left on the 15th. And so this is in the 3rd month after they left. So we're here. We don't know exactly what timeline, but we're in the month of Sivan. This month. And what's interesting is in Jewish tradition, they teach that this is that the 10 Commandments were given 50 days after Passover, which would have put it on the 6th of Sivan. I don't know. I don't know. I have no idea, but that's what they traditionally. But you still get the idea. They haven't been gone very long. If this is the 3rd month, they've not been gone long at all. And I don't know what it means to the very day. And it could be that they left on the 15th of Nisan and arrived on the 15th of Sivan. But I just wanted you to see it's not very long. Like, we've seen a lot of interesting things happen, and it's just not been very long since their actual exodus. Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And I'm a question about the
yes.
calendar. On this one calendar that you gave us, it said there's 2 kind of calendars. One's civil calendar and then sacred calendar. Is this the?
This is the sacred. Right. They changed the month of Nisan was on the civil calendar. It's the 7th month. But when they made the Exodus on the sacred calendar, this is the 1st month. So in fact, they just celebrated not Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah, which is the Jewish New Year, and it's in the fall, where the Exodus was actually in the spring. And so, yeah, so, and yeah.
And they still celebrate that today?
Yes, yes. In fact, my son does not have class Wednesday because of Yom Kippur. So I don't know if they're just observing I don't know. It's not a Jewish
in every way.
Yes, exactly. So anyway, yes, they still celebrate it, observe it today. Yeah. But so their Jewish New Year starts in the fall, and you'll see that on your calendar. But this is their sacred calendar, and it starts in the spring, Nisan, and which Passover is close to our Easter, so that kind of gives you an idea. Okay, and so verse 2. When they set out from Rephidim, they came to the wilderness of Sinai. Oh, I forgot to go to Numbers 10. I even have it in my Bible. Let's go to Numbers 10, because I don't know. This was interesting. It's Numbers chapter 10, beginning verse 11. So Numbers chapter 10, beginning verse 11. Now it came about in the 2nd year, in the 2nd month, on the 12th of the month, that the cloud was lifted from over the tabernacle of the testimony, and the sons of Israel set out on their journeys from the wilderness of Sinai. Then the cloud settled down in the wilderness of Paran. So they moved out for the first time according to the commandment of the Lord through Moses. And so what's interesting, so this is the 2nd year, the 2nd month, when they actually leave. So they're going to be here 11 months.
Oh.
So like one person, I guess, took the time to count this. There are 56 chapters dedicated to these 11 months. So you have 40 years in the wilderness, and 56 chapters are dedicated to these 11 months. So, which, I know, I thought that was interesting. That's a lot. This is kind of important.
I realized all this happened so quickly. It takes you so long to read it. It seems like it's a lot more.
That's why I really wanted you to see on the calendar. It's just not been that long.
Amazing.
It's not even been 3 months. It's just short. Yes.
And if I losing their faith this quickly, that's mind-boggling. You just saw all these miracles, and here you are giving up already.
How much has changed?
I just keep thinking about the verse that says faith comes by hearing and hearing through the word. If faith came from seeing or experiencing, these men would be spiritual giants. But seeing and experiencing, it's something in here, and it's, yeah. So anyway, 56 chapters dedicated to these 11 months. Okay, so back in Exodus 19, beginning in verse 2. When they set out from Rephidim, they came to the wilderness of Sinai and camped in the wilderness, and there Israel camped in front of the mountain. And we read this verse last week, but I want to read it again. we're going to see later he refers to it as Mount Sinai, and Mount Sinai and Mount Horeb are the same, and we'll see them used interchangeably. And I think one thing I read said that Horeb described the mountain range, but Mount Sinai was maybe the highest peak or the biggest mountain there. But I want us to go back to Exodus chapter 3, verse 12. And I mean, this whole chapter is so amazing. This is where, well, let me read the first part. Moses was pasturing the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian, and he led the flock to the west side of the wilderness and camped at Horeb, the mountain of God. And this is where he saw the famous burning bush, where and the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a blazing fire from the midst of the bush, and he looked, and behold, the bush was burning with fire, yet the bush was not consumed. So anyway, this is where God spoke to Moses from the burning bush, and it's here at Mount Horeb, called the Mountain of God. And then down in verse 12 of Exodus chapter 3, verse 12, and this is God speaking, and he said, "Certainly I will be with you, and this will be the sign to you that is I who have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you shall worship God at this mountain." And so the very fact that we're there, I mean, this is, Moses hadn't even gone back to Egypt yet when he's given this promise. So all of the plagues, all of the, we don't have any food to eat, we don't have any water to drink, all of those were leading up to this. And so Moses had this promise of God in the back of his head. He promised to bring us back to Mount Horeb or Mount Sinai to worship. So the implication is we're going to be a free people, and we're going to be free to go worship the Lord at this mountain. And so all those terrible circumstances that would tend to be so discouraging, the promises of God are such an encouragement, and we can cling to them. I mean, application of the lesson today is the same every week. God's word's true. You can count on it. And so, I mean, this just helps understand how Moses was able to endure the things that he did, because he had this in his head, God's promise to bring us back. And so that's what keeps you going. I don't know how he's going to do it. I don't know what he's going to do about these Egyptians. I don't know what he's going to do about Pharaoh and his army. But he's promised to bring us back here to worship, which means they're no longer under the reign of Pharaoh. So anyway, promises of God, true. His word is so true. And if he makes a promise, it's so true. And you can just cling to it. And so when circumstances look bad, if they contradict God's word, you can always count on his word to be true. Okay. I know. Just so good. Okay. So back to Exodus 19. And Moses went up to God, and the Lord called to him from the mountain, saying, "Thus you shall say to the house of Jacob, and tell the sons of Israel." This was so fascinating, because what I read was that in Hebrew this is very poetic, and I mean, like it was meant to be memorized, and it's written and said in a way to remember it, and it's got a perfect rhythm to it. And so when it sounds a little repetitive, don't read into the fact that he says, "Say to the house of Jacob, tell the sons of Israel." It's a very poetic way to help memorization, actually. And so, and then also just the fact that the house of Jacob, the sons of Israel, again, we're going back to this amazing promise where you have this Abraham and Sarah, they're barren, they're childless, and they've been promised that they're going to be a great nation, and yet they have no kids. And then even her barren womb, when it's way beyond childbearing years, then she has a child. And now, here they are, easily 2 million, 600,000 men, plus women and children, plus the mixed multitude that's with them. I mean, what a great reminder of your humble beginnings. And again, God's being fully persuaded that God is able to do that which He's promised. And so He promised to make them into a great nation, and here they are. So they went into Egypt, a family, kind of a small family actually, and now they're coming out of Egypt, birthed into this great nation. And just again, a reminder of God's promises. And then verse 4, you yourselves have seen what I did to the Egyptians. And I mean, we looked last week that Jethro had heard and believed. We're going to see 40 years later. We looked at Rahab. She had heard and feared the Lord because she had heard, these are eyewitnesses. They have seen it. They have lived it. They know. You yourselves have seen what I did to the Egyptians and how I bore you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself. I wanted to look at this in Deuteronomy 32. So if you have a lot of spare time this week, I would just encourage you to read the book of Deuteronomy. I know, it's just so good. In as few settings as possible. And if you don't have that much time, read Psalm 119, because both are going to be so relevant. Yeah, that's more doable. But I mean, it's just so good. It's so good. Okay, so Deuteronomy 32, beginning in verse 10. And again, this is Moses' farewell speech. This is 40 years, and they're getting ready to leave. And I love to hear how they reflect on these events 40 years later. And so here, Moses is, he found him in a desert land and in the howling waste of a wilderness. He encircled him, he cared for him, he guarded him as the pupil of his eye. Like an eagle that stirs up its nest, that hovers over its young, he spread his wings and caught them. He carried them on his pinions, and the Lord alone guided him, and there was no foreign god with him. And again, it's just a reminder that it was God alone. And we saw in the 10 plagues how he judged those fake, made-up gods. The armies of Egypt, how he alone destroyed them, just like with the breath of his mouth. I mean, just the waters crashed down, they're destroyed. It's just this great picture of God's care for his people. And then, I think that's just the way he cared. Oh, there's Brenda. Hey, Brenda. The way he... Just a great reminder of how he cares and how much he loves his people and what it means to be his. The way he delivers, the way he protects, the way he provides. He's so good. And then again, just on, let's see what, in such a polytheistic, everybody worshipped multiple gods, and then he just wants them to know he alone, and they know that it was he alone. They saw what he did to the god of the Nile and the god of, whatever that the Egyptians worshipped. So it's God and God alone.
Don, I had a pastor talk about this. This phrase is used a few times in the Bible, but he's talking about the apple of his eye.
Yes.
And he said that it literally means like tiny person. Like when you hold a baby, like when you breastfeed and you look in their eyes and you see you like reflected in their eyes, it's the tiny person. That's what that means. That's what that phrase means. You're so close. They're holding you so close. You can see the tiny vision of yourself in their eye, little reflections. That's what it means. So it's very close.
That is such a great picture. Yeah, that's really good. Really, really good.
Cool.
And then notice how I brought you to myself. I mean, he's showing us what it means to be his. And I looked at the word, I put it in my notes like 100 times. So I don't know where it really applies, but we're going to talk about this word holiness, and it's a set apart. And that's what he does. He separates out people to himself, and that's what he's doing. And it was interesting because this word holiness, the root word has the idea of cutting, to cut. And when you cut something, you separate it out. You sever it. You cut it out. And he's separating out a people unto himself. We saw him do it with Abraham. We saw him do it with Isaac. And we saw him do it with Jacob. We have Jacob and Esau, and he took Jacob. He's separating out a people unto himself.
And he does that with us.
Yes. Yes. Right. And yes, and that's what he's doing here. Yeah.
And like how it states that I brought you unto myself. So it's not that we had to climb the mountain and do it on our own. But he parted the sea, he freed you, you know, and severed those ties.
Yes.
And that it was God doing that for us.
Yes, and our deliverance, and there's no other explanation.
No.
Like there is you cannot explain how a group of shepherds can destroy the armies of Egypt. I mean, there's just no other explanation except the goodness of God. Okay. And then in verse 5, now then, we get an if-then statement. If you will indeed obey my voice and keep my covenant, then you shall be my own possession among all the peoples, for all the earth is mine. We were in Ephesians this summer, and I couldn't help but think about it, and our pastor talked about it Sunday. You spend, like in Ephesians, we spent chapters 1, 2, and 3 talking about what God did for us, the way He rebirthed us, how, you know, He became sin. He took the punishment of our sin on himself, and he died on the cross in our place. And then he was buried, and then he was raised to new life. And that's a picture of us being spiritually dead, being raised to new life. You have all that in 3 chapters. And then Ephesians 4:1 starts, therefore, walk this way. He doesn't say, walk this way so that. And like here, he's saying he's done all of this for them. He's delivered them. They were so helpless in their own deliverance. They could not defeat them. They could not free themselves. They were helpless. And so God delivered them. He freed them. It's now that you're free. Walk this way. Not, here are the rules, here are the laws. Learn to live this way, then I'll set you free. We're saved by amazing, amazing grace. And then, therefore, this is our freedom lived out. And the other thing, we're getting ready to get into the law, and we'll talk about that next week. But I do want you to see, freedom is not lawlessness. Freedom is not Old Testament or New Testament. Freedom is not lawlessness. In fact, freedom is fully enjoyed within the law. We're a free nation, but the laws are what help us enjoy that freedom. So, yeah, it's not, if you have lawlessness, you've got people acting a fool. And so, you know,
I've always heard it said about the fish in the fishbowl. You know, that fish is perfectly safe within those boundaries, but if it gets out of there, it's big trouble.
Great picture, yes. And Al Mohler has a quote, there is grace in this law, and we're going to see he's so gracious and so good and so kind. There's grace within this law, but in the New Testament, we have law within his grace. And so there are boundaries, and they are for our benefit.
I like that. Grace within the law.
Yeah, it's an Al Mohler quote. I don't even know the context that he said it. It was just good. It was in Hebrews 12. So he's talking about it. Okay. And this is the first time we see an if-then statement. But notice, their deliverance and their freedom is not contingent on this. The freedom is. They've already been delivered. It's not contingent on this. But this is the first time we see covenant that's an if-then. So if you do this, there are benefits. If not, there are consequences. But it's within their freedom. It's not to obtain freedom. Just, we've got to be so clear on that. So clear on that.
But it is to bring unto himself.
Yes, right. It's a separating out. And Dr. Latham talked about that too Sunday, and we've talked about it here so many times. It's these laws that are going to keep them from being absorbed. So they had kosher laws, they had circumcision laws, they couldn't intermarry. Those were designed to keep them separate from the world so that they could bring forth the Messiah. And so, yeah, we'll talk more about the law next week, but yes. Okay. And then it says if you will indeed obey my voice and keep my covenant, then you shall be my own possession. And it's just interesting, the term, I tried the different, peculiar treasure. So anyway, I was looking this up, and another place this is used, and I wanted us to look at it together because it helps give such clarity to what it means to be a treasured possession. This word treasures, it has the idea of, I have a lot of notes on that. It has the idea of being covered. Actually, I think the root word was to shut up. To shut up, meaning put in a safe or a treasure chest. You take this treasure and because it's your most valued possessions. But David uses this term. Did I put it in your notes? I don't even think I put it in your notes. I don't think I put it in my notes. But it was really good. Let's see if I can. It was in 1 Chronicles 29. I'll just see if I can find it because I didn't write it down. But David used this exact same expression. King David so desperately wanted to build the, let's see if I can find it. Yeah, it's 29:3. King David so desperately wanted to build the tabernacle for God, and God said no, it was for Solomon to build. But David, in his lifetime, he spent much of his life preparing for the building of the tabernacle and just getting everything in order so that his son could do it. So in 1 Chronicles 29, he's talking about what he's done. So in 1 Chronicles 29, verse 3, he says, "And moreover, in my delight in the house of my God, the treasure I have of gold and silver I give to the house of my God, over and above all that I've already provided for the holy temple." So, that he's so passionate about this tabernacle, and out of his pure delight, he went and got his hidden treasures, or those that they're so precious they've been stored, and he even pulled those out for the building of the tabernacle. But it was the same word used. So he loved the idea of the the temple, and he wanted to be part of building it, and it was such a joy to him. So it was in his great delight, he went and got his most prized possessions to put towards the building of the temple. And so here, it was just the same word. So it's a hidden treasure. It's the most precious that you put in the most hidden place. And, the New Testament term we would use would be sanctification, being made holy. So we're going to spend the rest of our lives being I like Romans 8:29 version, being conformed into the image of his son. It's all the same idea. We're going to spend the rest of our life being conformed, and so that's what you're going to see here. And you don't want to take any parallel too far, obviously, but you do see the great deliverance, the freedom from the bondage of sin and death into this new life, and the lifetime of being sanctified, being conformed to the image of his son. Okay. Now we have to read 5 and 6 together, and then we're going to talk about this one. It says, "Then you shall be my own possession among all the peoples, for all the earth is mine, and you shall be to me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words that you shall speak to the sons of Israel." And so I want us to look at 1 Peter together, chapter 2, where he also talks about us being a kingdom of priests, but he explains why. I know, it's just, I have so many things in my head, and I just do not have the vocabulary to express it. So I hope that as we read this, it's getting in your head too. So 1 Peter chapter 2, verses 9 and 10, and Peter's quoting from this passage we just read. "But you are a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people for God's own possession, that you may proclaim the excellencies of him who has called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. For you once were not a people, but now you are the people of God. You had not received mercy, but now you have received mercy. But notice why they were set apart. They were called out of darkness into light to proclaim the excellencies of Him. That's why. And so now, with that in mind, when we go back and look at this, so Exodus chapter 19, verses 5 and 6. Now then, if you indeed obey my voice and keep my covenant, then you shall be my own possession among all the peoples, for all the earth is mine, and you shall be to me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. So the whole point was for God to demonstrate His glory through them. So when you have these people who are slaves and have been slaves for 430 years to the day, and God sets them free, and then the picture of them being right there at the Red Sea, they've got the Egyptian army coming, the greatest, most powerful army on the earth, with the best equipment, the best armor, the best weapons, and they're coming in, and you have shepherds, just helpless shepherds with their families, and they're here at the Red Sea, and God just parts the Red Sea, and they walk on dry ground, and then when the army follows them, and the water crashes and just destroys with the breath of His mouth. I mean, there is no doubt that God is God. God alone is God. And so they're set apart so that He can demonstrate His glory. They're in the wilderness. I mean, we talked about this. We've seen the Syrian refugees and these refugee camps, and water and food are an issue. They're a real issue. And the totals I've heard overall are 350,000. So if you take Israel, and there were, easily 2 million people, because there were 600,000 men, plus women, plus children, plus the mixed multitude that was with them. And then for God to bring them to the desert, water resources are not there. And He can, and He just makes water come from the rock. Enough water for all those people and their livestock. He rains down manna from heaven, enough to feed all these people. Food and water, not an issue when God's your God. Yes. So, and just His goodness. So they're being separated out and set apart. So He can display His glory through them, through their deliverance, through their provisions. He's just demonstrating His excellencies. And so, okay. But anyway, so the fact that the earth, He says in the end of verse 5, for all the earth is mine. He's wanting to make Himself known, as we looked at last week, just making Himself known. Okay. And then so a kingdom of priests, the priests are the ones that would represent God to the people and represent the people to God. And they were that was their role. And so this whole nation is set apart to demonstrate God to the world, because the earth is His, and He wants to make Himself known. I wish we could just read all those verses again this week, because they were so good. So they're a kingdom of priests, they're a holy nation, a set apart, a cut out, and then God says, these are the words that you shall speak to the sons of Israel. So Moses came, and he called the elders of the people, and he set before them all the words which the Lord had commanded him. And all the people answered together and said, all that the Lord has spoken we will do. And so Moses brought back the words of the people to the Lord. Of course, they hadn't heard the commandments yet. And we're going to learn. I know. But, what do you say? When God... So, and...
But at least they were willing.
Right.
Sometimes people, and I know in my own life, sometimes I've heard what the Lord said and then refused, so at least they were willing.
They did have a heart for that, and the whole point of the law is going to be that we can't keep it, and so they're going to realize, and it's not going to take them long to realize that they can't keep it. It's going to put a longing in them for a Savior, because the law is going to be burdensome because they can't keep it, no long for a Savior. But for right now, they do have the best of intentions, and even Deuteronomy said He was well pleased with their words. So they really want to be obedient, which I think we all want. I know, it's just Okay, so they said, all that the Lord has spoken we will do. And then verse 9, so Exodus 19:9, and the Lord said to Moses, behold, I shall come to you in a thick cloud, in order that the people may hear when I speak with you, and may also believe in you forever. Then Moses took the words of the people to the Lord. Which, I mean, that's what a priest does. And a prophet in the Old Testament, that's what the prophet would do. He's going to come in a thick cloud, and then he wants the people to hear. So when God is going to boom out these laws and commandments, the people are going to hear. They're going to hear it too.
So
And
they hear it audibly.
yes. Yes. I know. It's just, yeah, and we're going to see that again too. It's going to be very fascinating. So that the people may hear. And they also want them to know, to follow, that Moses is mine, and I placed him in this position, and you're to follow him. And this way they'll trust him, which, again, I know we're going to have our moments in that too.
Poor Moses, he's hiking up and down that mountain.
I know. I thought about that. He's probably in really good shape by now.
Godspeed.
I did. I put in here Deuteronomy chapter 4. I want us to look at that together too. I think this is interesting. It just shows how God knows us so well, and he explains. Okay, so in Deuteronomy 4:15. And again, this is Moses' farewell speech. This is at the end of the 40 years. He says, so watch yourselves carefully, because they're getting ready to go into the promised land for real this time. He says, watch yourselves carefully, since you did not see any form on the day that the Lord spoke to you at Horeb from the midst of the fire, lest you act corruptly and make a graven image for yourselves in the form of any figure, in the likeness of male or female. And we'll revisit this when we get to the Ten Commandments and idolatry, but I mean, he knows this, so he on purpose did not allow them to see an image, because they would have turned it into an idol. I mean, is that not so insightful to our flesh? I know, that's what we do. So anyway, I thought that was interesting. So they're not going to see him, but they are going to hear him. Okay, so back to Exodus 19, verse 10. The Lord also said to Moses, go to the people and consecrate them today and tomorrow, and let them wash their garments, and let them be ready for the third day. For on the third day the Lord will come down on Mount Sinai in the sight of all the people. So they're given 2 days to consecrate themselves. They're to wash their garments. And we saw in Exodus chapter 3, the burning bush, God's like, don't come near, take off your shoes, for the ground where you're standing is holy. And God is a holy, holy God. And so we're going to talk about how to approach God. He's going to lay it out.
Is there anything significant? Third day, third day.
I know he's going to say it over and over and over. It's got to be significant, because it's in there so many times. It's like he's really trying to make a point. I don't know what it means, but I know if it's in there that many times, it's so significant. And when we figure it out, when he teaches it, it's going to be so amazing. But, so for right now, we just know it's in there a lot, and it is significant. It's going to take him 2 full days. One of the things I read, there's a lot of people, and it's going to take a long time to wash their garments. I'm not even sure where they're going to do it. But I still think, because it's in there so many times.
It could have been 4 days.
Yeah, exactly. It's 3 days, and it's over and over and over and over. Yeah. And so they're to wash their garments and then be ready for the third day. So there's going to be preparation, consecration taking place in order to meet with God. When he comes down, they've got to be, I don't know what the right word. I'm thinking of Ephesians 5 again, where he cleanses her with the washing of word to present her holy and blameless. I mean, there's a being made holy in order to be in his presence.
Would this be everyone or just the men that would be consecrated?
That is such a good question. I take it that everyone had to wash their garments and be made ready. we're going to see that the elders and the priests were the leading. I don't know. I just don't know.
It might be getting my family ready for church.
Yeah. I know.
Laundry,
I know.
The process gets you there.
I was thinking that would be everyone too, but I think the 3-day in this particular thing had to do with giving them a deadline or they drag their feet.
That's a very good point. Yeah, well, I mean, he's coming, and they've got 2 days to get ready.
Right.
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
and also, it's not so long that they're forgetting that they just said, yeah, we're going to do all this. It's still
Right.
fresh in their brains.
Yes, that's a good point,
Hopefully.
too. I know. It's not going to last long, but yes, right.
Is there any correlation to being 3 days to be in presence of God? Kind of like the tomb, 3 days.
I think it's all very significant, but I just don't know. I don't know. I mean, I've read every third day. I mean, I don't know. I know it's significant, though. There are a lot of third days. It's very significant. I just.
What does the word consecrate actually mean?
Oh,
Like,
that's-
we go and consecrate them today and tomorrow.
That's a very good question. I don't know. Does someone have their Bible app?
Is it set apart?
It's a being made holy, being set apart. But as far as the actual word, I did not actually look up. So if someone has their Bible app, you can
Well, when
look
they
it up first.
consecrated, when the prophets consecrated someone, they
Yes.
poured oil on them and blessed them
Yes.
by the Lord, blessed them to the Lord when they consecrated them. So it's the Lord's consecrating and
Yes.
consecrating them. So this would be the Lord putting His hand on them, so to speak.
And I mean, like when I was going through this, I'm like, there's an example, and I don't even know whose example it is, but this fear of the Lord, they use the example of if you're on a safari or you're walking along and you look over and there's a huge lion, you're going to be paralyzed with fear. You're not going to move because you know what the lion can do to you. You're going to be paralyzed in fear and you're not going to move. And I mean, and when they use the fear of the Lord, it's a paralyzing fear, but not. I want to be careful to say this properly. So if you're a lion trainer and you know how to approach the lion, there's no fear. We're going to see Moses. Moses knows how to approach the Lord. God's fear in His amazing mercy. He's taught us how to approach Him, but you have to approach Him His way. And so, in fact, I don't know if I put it here. Yeah, do you have
Consecration is a solemn dedication to a special purpose or service, usually religious. The word consecration literally means association with the sacred. Persons, places, or things can be consecrated. The term is used in various ways by different groups.
Yeah, okay.
It's a solemn dedication to a purpose.
Yeah, okay.
It reminds me of like preparing yourself to take communion.
Yes.
Just searching
Yes.
yourself and making sure that you're ready to come before that presence.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good, it's just not I think the big thing, it's not a casual approach. You don't just approach casually. And when we diminish the holiness of God, I don't know if I put it here, but in Exodus chapter 20, did I put Exodus 20? I did put it in there, but we're going to look at it now. Exodus chapter 20, in Exodus 20:20, actually. So Exodus 20:20. And Moses said to the people, "Do not be afraid, for God has come in order to test you, and in order that the fear of Him may remain with you, so that you may not sin." So this fear of the Lord is so healthy, and I think we've gone so far the other extreme. We've made Him so casual. When I was thinking about Him, He's like a toothless teddy bear. And when we diminish His holiness, we diminish the authority of His word. We diminish obedience. We've made Him so casual and so unholy and so common, and it is so wrong. It's kind of
We've got
scary.
a generation of people who have been taught that way.
Yes,
Yeah.
I know, and the way they talk about, which I was going to end looking at some instances where they approach God. So
Dawn, was it you that said a lot of our modern Christian music, you could put your boyfriend
yes, yes, you can put in.
Well, I think a lot of times our religion has become us and our feelings instead of God and His truth.
Yes,
Yes.
that's a great way to put it.
And
Yes,
and it reveals itself in how we worship
yes,
in songs. Not worship songs are not bad, but when we make it about a feeling
yes,
instead of about His truth, that's where we begin to stray and go down
Yes.
that where we make it easy for ourselves. Where how is it for us? You know, instead
yes.
of
And it diminishes the holiness of His Word. So when there's no holiness in God, and His Word then becomes casual, and we can just kind of, take it, leave it, and then obedience.
Everything's about our feelings. I mean,
Everything.
sometimes I'm so excited
Yes.
for my quiet time. I feel so close and so grateful. And other
Yeah.
times, I'm tired. But He didn't say only do what you feel like. You know, I mean, it's not about our feelings.
No,
and
it is
I
not.
think women especially, we're all about all in our feelings. And,
Yes. I don't think it's just women anymore.
Yeah, that's just true.
I mean, I'm seeing touchy-feely men, and it's just. I don't. Yeah, we've so diminished the holiness of God, and we've turned everything into an emotion. And
Well, feelings can deceive us. The Bible will not.
our Awana's memory verse was about the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked, and who can understand it? And it's true. This is such a great reminder that of experience, because they're going to have experience. Oh yes, God, we fear you. We'll do whatever you say, and then we're going to get in a few chapters, and they're going to build a golden calf. I mean, it's just when you're doing it on emotions, our emotions are up and down, and where God's word, His truth, is constant. It never changes. It's just constant.
And you think about, I always ask this question when I think about how they so quickly turned after they saw so many miracles. And I think about myself, like when I have had, you have those times in your life when you know that God is speaking to you and you know that you are just so close with the Lord, or maybe you went to a conference or something and you're like on this high and you've seen these amazing things, and how quickly we forget, even now, we didn't, and a conference isn't like seeing these miracles, but we have those summit moments, those peak moments. And oftentimes, you look at football, right? I was so nervous about this Tulsa game because here you have this game where you beat Tennessee, and it's like you put all this effort and it's awesome, and then you got to do it, and then next week comes, and we play Tulsa, and you think that would be a walk in the park. But I said, they better be ready. They better work that week because they just beat Tennessee, but they got another game to play.
Exactly.
And so we do the same thing, and it's a really cool reminder.
Yes, it's such a great reminder. And we were just talking about this Sunday night. Chris and I were about if you're people have real deep convictions and strong passions. If they're in truth that never changes, then your lifestyle's going to be consistent because your convictions are in this. But if your convictions are in something else, you're going to be nothing else is this constant and consistent. Like you might have deep compassions about one thing, but if it's not grounded in truth, then it's not going to translate to another area of your life. It's going to be segmented because it's not in truth, and this is so constant and it's all encompassing. Okay, let's.
One thing
Yes,
that if
please.
we'll remember when we begin our prayers, to start it with the Lord's Prayer.
Yes,
Because if we
hallowed be
remember
thy name.
hallowed His
Be
name
thy
is,
name. Yes.
that will bring you down to
Yes, that is such a
to
good
the
point.
humble
Yes.
attitude that we need to have. when we
Yes.
pray.
That's a great reminder. Yes. Okay, back to Exodus 19, and we'll pick up in verse 12. Did I put Matthew in your notes? Yeah, that's. This was just along the lines of the fear of the Lord, Matthew 10:28. This is such it's all so good. So good. Matthew 10:28. this is Jesus speaking, and he says, "Do not fear those who kill the body, but are unable to kill the soul, but rather fear him who is able to destroy both soul and body in hell." And I think sometimes we forget that aspect of God. And like I said, we make him a toothless teddy bear, and he's a holy, holy God who can destroy both body and soul in hell. Okay. But thank goodness he's so good and loving. But he does have his judgments. I mean, if you're his, like when we were doing the plagues and he made a distinction between those who are his. I mean, this is what it means to belong to him. We see the kind, but he is holy and he will be revered as
But
holy.
isn't that kind of comfort? I mean,
It's
so
great
comforting.
comfort.
Because we long, I mean, our kids long for boundaries. They don't always, but they do so much better structure and boundaries, and so do we.
And consistent.
Right,
And
and if we think,
consistent.
well, he might judge this, but I don't know if he'll judge it. I mean,
No,
it's just
right. Nope.
chaos.
No worries, it's clear, and I think we'll see it here. He's going to keep. Well, I think it's saying in the next part. So, let me read 12 and 13. "And you shall set bounds for the people all around, saying, Beware that you do not go up on the mountain or touch the border of it. Whoever touches the mountain shall surely be put to death. No hand shall touch him, but he shall surely be stoned or shot through. Whether beast or man, he shall not live. When the ram's horn sounds a long blast, they shall come up to the mountain." And so again, he's setting bounds. But that's what I want us to understand, because when I hear people, oh, a loving God wouldn't send people to hell. Let me tell you what a loving, merciful God does. He warns. He sets the boundaries. He makes it so clear. He is so clear on how to approach him and how not to approach him. He's so clear. That's his mercy. It's not merciful to on judgment day to change your mind. That's called lying. It's merciful that you warn, and he's so clear. We have his written word. We have preachers. We have teachers. I mean, he has made it so. He sent his son to make it so clear. There's only one way. There is one path. It is narrow, but there's only one. And he's made it so clear. And he's warned, and he's warned, and he's warned, and he's made it clear. And so that's his amazing mercy. He doesn't have to give those warnings. He does in his amazing mercy. So that's mercy, is in the warning. And then he tells them, if you touch them, not only does he tell us how to approach it, he tells us the consequences of not doing it his way. And then if anyone touches the mountain, he should be put to death. You can't even touch the one who touched the mountain. I mean, he's so holy. And so no hand shall touch him, but he shall surely be stoned. And I thought this was interesting because it makes it sound like, I mean, I would assume that if you touched it, you died like that, but instead you would be put to death. I thought that was interesting. And they would be stoned because you can't lay a hand on them. You'd stone them. And then the shot through, I thought, well, that's interesting. But they were talking about arrows. They would have used, they used arrows back then also. So not a gun, an arrow. They will be shot through, whether beast or man. So not even an animal that touches the mountain will live, because his word is so consistent. And again, he shall not live. When the ram's horn sounds a long blast, this ram's horn, I mean, it's not being blown by any human. No human is blowing this horn, and it's going to be like a very fearful moment when we see it happen. So Moses went down from the mountain to the people, consecrated the people, washed their garments, and he said to the people, "Be ready for the third day. Do not go near a woman." So again, just the holiness, purity, the cleanness. And then verse 16. So it came about on the third day, when it was morning, that there was thunder and lightning flashes and a thick cloud upon the mountain and a very loud trumpet sound, so that all the people who were in the camp trembled. I can't imagine how fearful that would have been that morning. And Moses brought the people out of the camp to meet God, and they stood at the foot of the mountain. And then 18, now Mount Sinai was all in smoke, because the Lord descended upon it in fire, and its smoke ascended like the smoke of a furnace, and the whole mountain quaked violently. When the sound of the trumpet grew louder and louder, Moses spoke, and God answered him with thunder. Okay, I want. Did I? I don't think I put Hebrews in there, but after I typed up the lesson, I thought I don't think I put Hebrews in it. We've got to look at Hebrews 12. So, yeah.
You
So
know, this
just
description of God,
yes.
thunder and lightning and a thick cloud, and
Yes.
the voice of the trumpet, and the people assembled. And it says on morning of the third day. You know, this just reminds me of when Christ rose again. You know,
Yes, that is a good. Yes, that's a great picture. Yes.
Maybe that's why the third day is so important, to,
Yeah.
show us this promise has been here all along. We just didn't
yes,
realize it.
when you see it happen, that event is like, wait a minute.
Yes, that is such a good point. Yes.
Hebrews 1.
Hebrews chapter 12, and we'll start in verse 18. And of course, this is reflecting back on it's for a different purpose, but we still want to read it. For you have not come to a mountain that may be touched, and to a blazing fire, and to darkness and gloom and whirlwind, and to the blast of a trumpet and the sound of words, which sound was such that those who heard begged that no further word should be spoken to them, for they could not bear the command, if even a beast touches the mountain, it will be stoned. And so terrible was the sight that Moses said, I am full of fear and trembling. And here he's contrasting Mount Zion to Mount Sinai. But I just wanted you to see that description when they're, the writer of Hebrews is talking about that the people were so afraid, for they could not bear the command. And then so terrible was the sight that even Moses said, I am full of fear and trembling. So just very, I just can't imagine that. And notice that the people who are begged that no further word should be spoken to them. Like they couldn't even bear having God speak to them like that.
Mm.
Yeah. And again, an experience, an emotion that's not going to last long at all. Anyway. And the other thing I was thinking about is that when God is establishing something, the judgment is immediate. So here he's establishing Israel as a nation. He's establishing his holiness. So for instance, we're going to get to the point where they make a golden calf, and he's going to make a very clear statement against idolatry. And people are going to die that day because they made the golden calf. But then by the time you get to Malachi, the priests are offering all their idolatry. And so when he's establishing something, he makes it very clear. We're going to read in a minute when he's establishing the Levitical priesthood. He's going to be very clear the standards, but then you're going to see the priests by the time you get to Malachi. And so when he's establishing it, he makes it known his boundaries, and it's very clear. And yet after that, it's like he extends mercy. His standard has not changed, even though his judgment may be delayed. His standard has not changed. The punishment is still the same. It just may be delayed. But his standard does not change. And so when he's establishing this here, how we approach him, it hasn't changed. Even though the judgment may not be as immediate, it's still the same and the consequences are still the same. Just maybe delayed judgment. And we don't want to mistake that for a God who's changed, because he has not changed. Okay. I was going to say that later, but it just came to my head. Okay, so now we're going to go to where was I? Okay, we read that. So verse 20. And the Lord came down on Mount Sinai to the top of the mountain, and the Lord called Moses to the top of the mountain. So Moses went up. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, go down, and again warn the people, lest they break through to the Lord to gaze, and many of them perish. And again, I hope you see his mercy and warning. Like, has he not been clear? He's been very clear. Like, he hasn't stuttered. It's clear. And he said it several different ways, but it's laid out very clearly.
But he understands people's curiosity.
Yes, he does. He knows us so well because he knows us. Inside and out, he knows us. And then verse 22, I thought this was interesting. And also let the priests who come near to the Lord consecrate themselves, lest the Lord break out against them. And he's going to refer to priest again. And they hadn't established the priesthood. So I thought that was intriguing. But what I read was that the head of the household would have acted as priest over his family. The one who actually offered the Passover sacrifice, the head of the family, would have acted as a priest. He would have been responsible for teaching and offering the sacrifice. So
Would there be other priests above that priesthood?
well,
or-
I guess for
Yeah.
right now it's just the head of your
Okay.
family, head of the household. Later he's going to establish
Sure.
a specific priesthood, but for this time it would have been the head of the household. So I thought that was interesting. So the priest, and let the priests who come near to the Lord consecrate themselves, lest the Lord break out against them. So verse 23, and Moses said to the Lord, the people cannot come up to Mount Sinai, for thou didst warn us, saying, set bounds about the mountain and consecrate it. And the Lord said to him, go down and come up again, you and Aaron with you, but do not let the priests and the people break through to come up to the Lord, lest he break forth upon them. And so Moses went down to the people and told them. I don't know if Moses and Aaron go up again, or if that's going to be later they go up. But I do think it's interesting that he told Aaron, which Aaron is going to be the priesthood. He told Aaron to come up, and Aaron's going to be the one responsible for the golden calf. And he was actually told to go up on the mountain. I don't know.
So
I mean,
these people were wanting to go up there, apparently. I mean, that's what it sounds like, some of them.
but then you
anyway,
read
to
in
me.
Hebrews, and it sounds like they were so afraid.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure they were curious. I'm
Sure.
sure they were. But then again, God's judgment will break out if they do, and He's so clear and so thorough, and He says it over and over and over and over to make it very clear. They are not to come up the mountain. They are not to touch the mountain. He's been so clear.
Okay, so where are the priests going? Because the priests are consecrating themselves to come
Near.
near, but nobody's allowed to come up. So are they just, they're allowed to be
Well-
around the perimeter?
Well,
And
here,
everybody else is farther?
right, and here's what I read. I mean, think about the number of people. About 600,000 men. I don't know how big this mountain was, but so it sounds like maybe, and we're going to say God's so orderly, that there may have been an order to, and it would have been very appropriate that the heads of the household led, and then behind them the elders, and then behind them the family. So I do think there was an order in how.
Like in the
where
temple
they
or
were
the
standing.
tabernacles. you
Yeah,
know,
we're
mentioned,
going to be that.
withdrew.
Yes, yes. God's very, very orderly. You just will not find chaos with anything associated with God. It's so orderly. So that was one of the things that I'd read, that maybe there was an order, just to keep it orderly, so you don't have 600,000 people rushing the mountain. There would have been an order too.
And the children would be way back.
Right, right. Yes, exactly. And the women. Yeah. Okay. So I had a few passages I wanted us to look at together, just to get an idea of the holiness of God, and just when He's establishing these things, just how He executes judgment immediately. Let's just look at some Leviticus.
You know, and if you hadn't done that, then people wouldn't even know what mercy was.
Right. Yes. Yes. So Leviticus chapter 10. And these are going to be Aaron's two sons, and this is after the priesthood is established. So Leviticus chapter 10, verse 1. Now Nadab and Abihu, the sons of Aaron, took their respective fire pans, and after putting fire in them, placed incense on it, and offered strange fire before the Lord, which He had not commanded them. And fire came out from the presence of the Lord and consumed them, and they died before the Lord. And then Moses said to Aaron, It is what the Lord spoke, saying, by those who come near me I will be treated as holy, and before all the people I will be honored. So Aaron therefore kept silent. Those are scary verses. But he was very so it's not that we're supposed to be afraid to approach God. It's supposed that we respect His word, we honor His word, and we obey it. There's a way to approach Him. These were Aaron's oldest two sons. Thank goodness he had 4, so we have 2 more to take their place. But they didn't do it the way God said. And while they faced the judgment immediately because the priesthood is being established and God's setting his standard. Like I say, you're going to see the priesthood kind of forget this lesson, but his standard has not changed, and the judgment against disobedience has not changed. Nor
The same
will it.
story happens with Eli and his two sons and Samuel.
A little more delayed.
Yeah.
I mean, I always say he gives the warning. We know where he stands, and so for us, his amazing mercy, he extends the time between the disobedience and the judgment. Just in his mercy, he gives time for repentance because that's what he does. He's so good. But I mean, the no repentance, the judgment's the same. Even though it may be delayed, it's still the same. The next one we're going to look at is in 1 Chronicles 13, and it's King David. And
What's interesting with this though is that it's not even like they were doing necessarily a bad thing. You know, this is the offering, and maybe I'm looking into it too much. But
no,
even when you're doing so-called,
that's this next story. That is the lesson of this next story. Best of heart, best of intentions, praising God. Disobedience is not good.
well, it's the
Not
idea
good.
that I remember we studied a while back, and about it's not about doing what's right; it's about doing what's obeying. 'Cause
Yes.
there's a right way and there's God's way.
Yes,
God's
absolutely.
way is the correct way, but even though
Yes.
it doesn't feel
Yeah,
right.
yeah. I know, and that felt right, just and just approaching him so casually. It's a very scary thing.
Well, and they wanted their way. They wanted to do it the way they
Yes.
wanted. It was
Yes.
disobedience.
It was absolute disobedience. So this next one in 1 Chronicles chapter 13, beginning in verse 6. And this again, David has become king. All of Israel's unified, and they're going to bring the ark to David. So David verse 6. And David and all Israel went up to somewhere. That is something else. Which belonged to Judah, to bring up from there the ark of God, the Lord who is enthroned above the cherubim, where his name is called. And they carried the ark of God on a new cart from the house of Abinadab, and Uzzah and Ahio drove the cart. And David and all Israel were celebrating before God with all their might, even with songs and lyres, harps, tambourines, cymbals, and with trumpets. And when they came to the threshing floor of Chidon, Uzzah put out his hand to hold the ark, because the oxen nearly upset it. And the anger of the Lord burned against Uzzah. He struck him down. He put out his hand to the ark, and he died there before God. And then David became angry because the Lord's outburst against Uzzah. And he called the place Perez Uzzah to this day. And David was afraid of God that day, saying, "How can the ark of God come home to me?" So, I mean, this great celebration, they're so happy, and they're bringing the ark, and happy day. And I mean, one preacher said that Uzzah's problem was he assumed that his hand was holier than the ground. But so he just reached out to grab the cart. I want us to read it in 1 Chronicles 15. Let's turn over a couple of verses.
Do you think maybe David wasn't supposed to have brought the ark? And
Yeah,
this
we're
kind of
gonna
God's
read it.
reminder.
No, we're going to read.
Okay.
Okay, it's in 1 Chronicles 15:12. Yeah, let's read this part. And we're going to revisit this again when we look at the ark, when they build it. But, yeah. So 15:12. And said to them, "You are the heads of the fathers' households of the Levites. Consecrate yourselves, both you and your relatives, that you may bring up the ark of the Lord God of Israel to the place where I prepared for it. Because you did not carry it at the first, the Lord our God made an outburst on us, for we did not seek him according to the ordinance." So the priests and the Levites consecrated themselves, bringing up the ark of the Lord the Lord God of Israel. And the sons of the Levites carried the ark of God on their shoulders with the poles thereon, as Moses had commanded, according to the word of the Lord. And we're going to see when they build the ark, you're going to put rings on the corners and poles go through, and they were to carry it on. It was not to touch the ground. It was to be carried on their shoulders of these priests. And instead, with the best of intentions, they got a brand new cart. And it's going to be a new cart. So, like, no, a brand new, with the best of intentions, praising God the whole time, but it wasn't according to His word. It's not about having good intentions. It's about, are you obeying or not?
I wonder if Uzzah was just, instinct. Something starts to fall and you
Yes,
try to
exactly.
grab it.
Yes.
But it wouldn't have started to fall if somebody had been carrying it like they were supposed to.
Exactly. It should
Wouldn't
never
have
have been on
happened.
a cart. The cart, the oxen, they, in their head, we're going to do this holy, we're going to get a new cart, but it was in their own head. It was not according to the word. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
a good car.
The best men, yeah.
But it's an ox.
But
It's not the people.
It's not their
It's just like
shoulders.
those churches where people show up faithfully every week, but there's no substance, there's no, relationship there.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
they're
just-
there, they're faithful, they want to go, but it's empty.
It's empty. Yes. And it's got to be according to the word of the Lord. It's got to be His way. But that's His, I don't want to lose sight of His amazing goodness. He's made it clear. He told them when they built the ark, it was so clear how the ark was being transported. He's gonna spend a whole lot of chapters on the ark. It's just when we get ideas in our head, we do what we think is holy, what sounds holy to us, what sounds reverent to us, doesn't matter. What does the word of the Lord say? Period. And then my favorite passage is here talking about the holiness of God. It's Revelation chapter 1. There were so many we could look at, but these hit on the good points. And we could look at Acts chapter 5 too, when he's establishing the church, and we have Ananias and Sapphira. They're being hypocrites. They're pretending to give more than they are. They sold their property, and they were going to make a donation to the church. And when asked, they pretended like they were giving the whole amount, when in fact they were not giving the whole amount, which didn't matter. They didn't have to give the whole amount. But the point was that they lied about it. They wanted people to think they were giving the whole amount. Ananias died right there at the altar he lied. And then Sapphira comes in, and they ask her, and she goes along with the lie and the deceit. And then, okay, the feet of the men who buried your husband, they're here to bury you. And she dies. We have hypocrisy in the church today. The judgment isn't immediate, but when he's establishing something, he makes it very, very clear. Judgment may be delayed, but his standard has not changed. Okay, Revelation chapter 1. And this is, John is on the Isle of Patmos and being persecuted for his faith. So where did I have us pick up? Verse 12. So John said, "And I turned to see the voice that was speaking with me, and having turned, I saw 7 golden lampstands, and in the middle of the lampstands one like a son of man, clothed in a robe reaching to the feet, and girded across his breast with a golden girdle, and his head and his hair were white like white wool, like snow, and his eyes were like a flame of fire, and his feet were like burnished bronze. When it has been caused to glow in a furnace, and his voice was like the sound of many waters, and in his right hand he held 7 stars, and out of his mouth came a sharp 2-edged sword, and his face was like the sun shining in strength. And when I saw him, I fell at his feet as a dead man. And he laid his right hand upon me, saying, 'Do not be afraid. I am the first and the last, the living one. I was dead, and behold, I am alive forevermore. I have the keys of death and Hades.'" But to set the stage for this is John. And I love to reflect when Jesus was on the cross, being crucified. Mary had other sons, but when Jesus was being crucified, he looked out to John and he said, "You take care of Mary." And so he did. In fact, he went and pastored the church in Ephesus, and Mary is buried there. She went with him to Ephesus, and that is where she was buried, in Ephesus. John took care of her, even though there were other sons. They were close friends. When Jesus was on this earth in the flesh, they were very close friends. And yet, and we have the whole Mount of Transfiguration. John saw Jesus in all his glory on the Mount of Transfiguration. So it's not like this is the first time he's seen him. He saw him on the Mount of Transfiguration. And when he sees him, it's not, "Hey, best buddy, great to see you." None of that. A close friend. And when he sees him, he falls at his feet as though dead. That's the holiness of God and the reverence owed him. Because there was no closer friend on earth than John. And yet, you see the reverence that he gives. How much more so us. Yeah. But none of this embracing. It made me think of this song, "I Can Only Imagine, Will I Dance Before You, Jesus, or in Awe of You Be Still." I think this pretty much explains. You don't have to use your imagination. I think we're going to, if John reacted this way, I can't even imagine ours. Yeah. We're going to follow it. Yeah, just the awe and the reverence when you're in his presence.
Which is kind of feeling that by establishing that perimeter, this is the feeling you need to have for that. How real.
Yes.
This is just a picture of what it's going to be like.
Yes.